Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome to Factorio. Last time we completed the tutorial levels 1, 2, and 3, and then today I'm planning on going into 4 and 5. Quite frankly, I have no idea how this is going to go because 4 and 5 can take a long time if we're not careful about it. I'm going to try to balance showing everybody everything and also being somewhat speedy and compact with the time that I take to explain things. And part of that's because I'm not sure. Are people watching this particular video, did I get such a good response because people are saying, wow, I've never seen this game, it looks exciting, it looks interesting, I'm here for that? Or are these longtime Factorio players who are returning and saying, oh yeah, this is a nice little walkthrough, I appreciate being able to see the tutorial, maybe they've played it before, maybe they haven't, I don't know. And not knowing your audience is very difficult because then you ask yourself, do I explain every little detail or do I assume that you have some basic understanding? Thus far though, 1, 2, and 3, that video, I think I did a pretty good job of being fairly thorough. I think that we've caught most people up to speed. And I think that, as I mentioned in the previous video, we've gone over about 15% of the assets so far of the game. And we have talked about maybe 60 to 65% of the total gameplay loop. Now, let's get into some more of the very important gameplay loop. This is going to specifically talk about researching, automation, science packs, and things of that nature. So with that being said, let me just turn up the sound up to volume 20. I think that I've got the sound about correct for this game. It's a little different from game to game. When I'm doing Heroes, it's at a certain degree. And then for Factorio, I think that this will actually be the most correct. Again, we've done 1, 2, and 3. We did Crash, Mining Outpost, and Power Plant. And now we are on to Science and Automation. It's very important that if you want to play along with me, you absolutely can. This tutorial that I'm playing, all 5 of these levels are free. It is a free demo. It's a free download. You can go to Steam. You can go to Woob Software's actual website. Either way, you can download the free version. If this interests you, I recommend that you go and give that a shot. But for now, let's go into the 4th tutorial level. That will be Science and Automation. And let's dive right in. Here is our little engineer. And as you can see, this is the same map that we were on before, just with a lot of differences as far as it looks like our engineer's been very busy and he's built some extra structures, and it looks like we have some demolished buildings in the wreckage all around us. Sector scan complete. The radar has detected a distress beacon, but the signal is extremely weak. So let's just kind of go over some of the basics as our engineer is starting to talk and giving us some of the good context and some of the good flavor that only the tutorial really has. The engineer says, based on the attenuation of the signal, the source must be over 200 kilometers away. It looks like the signal strength is dropping. Going on foot would take far too long. If I want to track the source, I will need a faster method of transportation. First, I should research something to help protect myself from the enemies. And I think that that's a great idea because look, you've got pipes that's been destroyed here. You've got some steam engines that are no longer there. It looks like you've lost an electric mining drill. Oh, you've lost an awful lot. I mean, some of your structures just aren't working. And while in the free play of Factorio, when you are mining resources, and it's the way that the game is originally intended to be played, you don't really have to deal with going into a base that someone else has built and then repairing it, turning things around. That's just not really something you have to do. Here though, you absolutely must, and it can get a little bit disorienting for new players. It's a lot easier to modify a base that you have built rather than try and add on to something that someone else has built. If you ever play multiplayer in Factorio, you will find that out. For now, our objective is in the upper left and it says craft and build a lab. Okay, lab is going to be the main way that we end up doing research. In our upper right tab here, it says press T to start a new research. I will press T, or I can just left click on this tab in the upper right, and it will bring up our technology tree. It will prompt us later to get to this tree, but I think it's important now just for us to take a look and see what our ultimate plan is. We've talked about our goal. Well, we built the radars in the last scenario so that way we could find the distress beacon, we could find our crashed spaceship to get some additional resources and things of that nature. And we found the signal. We were able to meet our goal, but now we just found out here it's too far away. We can't simply walk. We need to find a faster method of transportation. Amongst all these different technologies that we can research, there is automobilism. And it says right here, an engine-powered vehicle used for transportation. This will ultimately be our goal. Up to this point in these tutorials, we have been given the technology necessary to complete our goals. This is the first time that we have to go through the process of researching ourselves. And the way that we do that is we find whatever research we want, and we of course have to work backwards. There are prerequisites to get to this automobile. We can't simply research the car. First, we have to research, for example, an engine, something that converts fuel into mechanical motion, an essential part of all vehicles. And going backwards into steel processing and things like that. And the way that you're able to generate the means to research any of these technological possibilities is through a lab. Let's go to our crafting menu. There's this little exclamation point in the upper left of these tabs. Prior, in the first three scenarios, we did not have these tabs. We didn't have a logistics, production, intermediate products, or combat tab. All of the things you could possibly craft were in one little section. But as you go on through Factorio, there are more things that you can unlock, more things you can build. And so the tabs are meant to allow you to go quickly to exactly what you're looking for, and it sorts it out. Otherwise, if you're trying to look through that whole menu of items and there's that one that you're looking for and you just can't find it, it's really frustrating. You can always use this search function here to say, I'm looking for a chest, and it will pop up all the different chests you have. I could say ammunition. Can I not? I'm not sure what ammunition is for. What's it actually called? Firearm magazine. I thought it would be ammunition. It's not, but I can do firearm magazine. So the search function is not perfect, but you have tabs now to help you find things, and you have the search function. Otherwise, this little exclamation point in the Productions tab indicates that there's something new that we can research and we can produce. This here's the lab. It requires 10 iron gear wheels, 10 electronic circuits, and 4 transport belts. This is going to be the way that we are able to make new researches happen and ultimately progress towards our ultimate goal of building a rocket and getting off of this planet. So, as it appears, we need some more raw materials. We do have in our inventory 100 belts, 20 of these arms, the inserters, 20 small electrical poles, 5 electric miners, a couple of stacks of coal, some plates, both of the iron and the copper variety, and then 40 green circuits. But again, we need some more resources, and so maybe it's a good time just to take a tour around our base before we get down to building the lab. In the last scenario, we had mentioned something very important, and that is pressing Alt. So in this view, it's really difficult to tell what is going on here. We are the engineer, we're here, I can see we have a coal mine here, we have a coal patch anyway, we have a copper patch here, it looks like we have an iron ore patch here, we have our electric production here. It looks like not everything is working 100%. It looks like there's problems because this boiler is not currently active. It looks like there's problems because what should be right here, this little offshore pump, is not present, along with the underground belts, or excuse me, the underground pipes that will get water from the pump to the boiler. So we have some problems with our electricity. And then if we go up to the north, it looks like we have a whole ton of dead biters. Look how many dead biters these are. Now, these are, of course, thematic. These were put in place to kind of give you a sense of time passing along with this other production that's happened. Our engineer is here, but we have sustained some heavy losses. And to help us, we have 1 and 2 gun turrets. It looks like there's a box here that could potentially be filled with ammunition that will then go into the turrets. But with this little tour, we need to press Alt because we are lacking a lot of information. If all of that was kind of difficult to read, I would agree with you. The only reason I know is because I've played these tutorials a couple of times. Let's hit Alt and see what's going on here. We know that we are smelting stone bricks. Rather than just collect normal bits of stone, we can then put the stone into a furnace and we will slowly craft stone bricks. They can be used for a lot of things. I can make like a walking path out of them. They can be used for some upper level crafting items. There's a lot you can do with stone brick. For now, I'm just going to keep the stone brick here. Maybe the most important thing, maybe the most important thing that we can do is make sure that we have stone brick to potentially build some walls. Stone brick is going to be important to build some walls later. But we also see that we have this box that should have some ammunition. It is empty. These gun turrets will carry up to 10 firearm magazines if you give them the chance. And so by pressing a little bit of firearm ammunition into those, they will fill up to 10. They will not go above that. They know that they're trying to conserve just a little bit of resources. And so it looks like our northern border is somewhat protected. It looks like here to the west, there's been some destruction. It looks like one of our turrets has gone down here. It looks like they have a similar situation set up where you had a box and then some arms that was automatically feeding the firearm ammunition. And then, of course, all this other destruction that we see. Now we can kind of see, once we have Alt tabbed on, that we have a nice setup here. We are mining some of our iron ore, and the iron ore is going onto the belt and it's going down into this little smelting array. It looks like that's 8 smelters that are possible to get filled up. And as the items go into the smelters here on the left-hand side, the plates come out, and then the plates get dropped onto this outer belt where they come back again and then are pulled off of the main belt by these arms, these inserters, into an iron gear assembler, and then an assembler that makes these belts. So this whole time that we've been talking has not been time wasted by any means, because this box has nearly 300 gears and this box has nearly 300 belts. That's terrific. That's absolutely terrific. Note that, as we talked about in the previous tutorial level, that these recipes will sometimes require more than just the raw materials, and the assembler machine itself cannot simply make the raw materials to satisfy its needs. Every item must be crafted. In this case, you are able to pull the iron plates off of the belt. They go into this machine and they satisfy this need for iron plates. And then there's this arm right here that is able to pull an iron gear occasionally out of this assembler into this assembler, and that will produce the belts. So there is a little bit of production already here. One thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to left click on this box, and I'm going to do something to help limit our production. Generally, I don't need to have 25,000 iron gear wheels. In this case, I've only got spots for 10, 16, it looks like. Yep, 1,600 iron gear wheels. But I don't really need 1,600 iron gear wheels. So one thing I can do is I can make sure that I limit my production. By left clicking right here, this little tab says limit part of the inventory so it cannot be filled by machines. If I click and then drag and then left click again, the box will only fill up to here. That will be 1,000 iron gear wheels. Or I can limit to right here, and I can say that at max I want 3 stacks of something in this box. In this case, it should fill up to be 300 iron gear wheels. If I take out all these iron gear wheels, it will only fill up to 300, and then it will stop because there's not going to be anywhere to put that extra production. Good to know. I'm going to do the same thing here with this, except I'm going to have about 200 iron gear wheels, and then I'm going to note that production here has stopped. There will be more gear wheels that will go into this assembler for the belts, but you can see it stacking up. There's 4 currently in the hopper, but there's no place to put them because the box is filled. And in that way, we are going to limit some of our production. And that's actually a very, very good thing. You don't want to overproduce when you don't have to, because resources are limited. Our engineer just said something there in the bottom. I'm going to just kind of pull that up real quick. It says, something must be causing the natives to attack the factory. Maybe they don't like the pollution. For the first time in Factorio, we have a new mechanic, and that is pollution. It was not present in the first, second, or third tutorial level. It is present now. When we hit the letter M, that will bring up our map. And this map here has several different things. I'm going to turn all of them off and talk about them very briefly with you, insofar as they are applicable to our current tutorial scenario. So, remember with the map here, if I zoom in, eventually, wherever I can see, I will get an actual personal view, but I'm not actually there. Usually my camera stays centered on my engineer, but I can zoom out and zoom in on the map. But notice that I have 1, 2, 3 sets of biters. We had taken them out in the previous scenario, in the previous tutorial, but now they're back. And when the engineer says, maybe they don't like the pollution, that is a very apt thing to know. Pollution is a mechanic by which all machines will create pollution, and that pollution will then be fed into a cloud. That cloud can be seen by hitting this 4th button from the left-hand side on the top. And anything that is red here is our pollution cloud, pollution being generated from our electric drills, from our smelters, from everything. And as we produce more pollution, this cloud will get bigger. As we produce more pollution, this cloud density will get more intense. And whenever this pollution cloud is over one of our enemy's biter spawners that will encourage growth like a human growth hormone would to a bodybuilder. It will make these enemies pump out more, and over time it will encourage evolution so that they become bigger, meaner, and nastier. And so managing your pollution in Factorio is very important. On the one hand, we all want to build massive factories, but on the other hand, if we build too massive of a factory too quickly, then we are probably going to incite the biters to want to come and attack us, and that can lead to heavy losses, and essentially that can lead to you running into an irrevocable destruction, something that you just can't come back from. And so we have a couple of choices whenever we have our biter cloud, whenever we have our pollution cloud that is over the biters. We can build up better defenses, we can get walls, and we can get more guns, and we can have belts, and we can have ammunition just free flowing, and we can make sure that we are turtled up. We can absolutely do that. Or we can always go out and we can try and destroy the biter spawners before they are able to outproduce us. As you can see, there's more of these little creepy crawly guys who are collecting. When they get a big enough party size, they will rush our way. They don't just come one by one, they come in groups, they come in waves. And then the other thing we can do is we can always just make less pollution. And there's lots of different ways that we can make pollution. Some of those are limited here in the tutorial. But quite frankly, it's a factory building game. Are you telling me that you want to build less in a factory game just to have less pollution? I think not. I say that we absolutely smash through our production quotas and we say, sorry biters, I know that this is your hometown, but I am the new sheriff in town. I don't care what you have to say on the matter. I've got a factory to run. And so that's just a very important thing for us to keep track of. We will very soon, but not at this current moment, go up and we will actually take out some of those biter spawners just so we don't have to deal with all those issues there. So I'm going to hit the letter M again. We were in map mode when I was kind of taking this tour of the base. I'm going to hit M again, and now my camera is centered back on the engineer. And we are going to make a couple of adjustments here to this factory. So first and foremost, we've already adjusted this where we are not producing too many belts here. That means that this box is getting a lot of extra iron plates, and that's not too bad. I'm going to take out a couple of these iron plates just so I have them handy. And then I'm actually going to, I'm going to kind of stop production here a little bit. I'm going to see if I can get this belt to back up. Why? Just because I want to. There's no real rhyme or reason at the moment. But it should happen much faster because I think that we can get some production problems fixed here now. One problem that we have is that all of these smelters are not currently being used. There is iron ore going onto the belt, but of course it's not getting down all the way to the end. So let's use our pipette tool and let's get a couple of more of these electric mining drills going. And if we do go to the production stats tab and we go to 1 minute, we can then see over time this blue line here. If I get rid of all the other ones, if I get rid of all the other lines, you can see exactly where I put in those extra 3 electric mining drills. We went from about 95 ore per minute all the way up to somewhere in the 170 ore per minute kind of range. So I guess actually we're kind of in the 132, 136 per minute, more or less. It's bouncing back and forth, but we can absolutely see on this line graph where that production bump came from. And that means that we're actually able to mine more than we were able to use at this current time, but we are now at least fully saturating this belt. We are fully saturating all of these smelters, and very quickly I think we're going to see this iron plate line back up, and that's not a terrible problem for now. We will find some other solutions. We are going to use all of that eventually, don't worry. We also have a couple of things over here. I noticed that there's a little bit of a tail end here. I don't think I'm going to want to make more of these copper smelters here, but I think I have 2 more of these electric miners. I'm going to use 1 more of them. I'm just going to increase the production there just a little bit. It's not too big of a problem for me. I am going to allow this box to fill completely up, but I do want to take a couple of these 100 iron plates off the top, just for my own personal use. And then notice that I do still have some of the burner miner tech here in my factory here. What's happening here, if you can see, is you've got 2 of these burner miner drills, and rather than have them go here and then have them go, say, put their resources into a box, what you're doing is you're essentially using them as a box. Because they're pointed at each other, they will fill up this hopper right here. And then once the hopper is filled up, production will stop. I can always go in, I can take out 50 of that coal here and 50 of the coal here, and then production will continue, and slowly they will add to the fuel hopper for both of these. That's just an easy way in the early game that you can get some free-flowing coal that you can then allocate manually to some other places. So I'm going to let that continue to work now. And then I can say to myself, well, maybe I should fix my power. Maybe I got some issues here. I say that right now, if we left-click on this power pole, we can see, well, we currently have 1.8 megawatts of total production possible. We are only using about 1.4, 1.5 megawatts. We don't need to deal with our power just yet. Let's leave it for just a moment, knowing that pretty soon we're going to have to make some adjustments there. So we've got iron ore, we've got copper ore, we've got some general coal smelting. It looks like this system is fairly indefinite. We don't have to really mess with it. And now we can get down to our original objective of craft and build a lab. Real quick, I'm just going to do that. But we've picked up the necessary resources. I'm going to build one lab for now. This is the lab. Labs will consume science packs and use them to research the selected technology. Technologies need a certain number of science packs to be completed, so using more labs will speed up your research as long as you feed them with science packs. For now, I'm just going to pull some power out there. These do have to be powered. And the objective currently is use the labs to research stone wall. Open the tech tree using the T key, as we had previously mentioned. The engineer says these biters won't give up. Maybe I should go kill them at their source. That would stop them for good. I do agree. We will get there in just 1 second, sir. And so let's go to our crafting tab again, and let's just click through here and just make sure that everybody's aware of what we currently have available to us. We have wooden chests, we have iron chests, we have transport belts, burner inserters, yellow arms, just regular inserters. We have a new thing, which is the long-handed inserter. Long-handed inserters do exactly what the yellow inserters do. They just do it in a different capacity. If I mouse over the red inserter, you can see that it will pick up items over here, and then it will drop items off over here, whereas the yellow inserter will pick up items from right here and drop them off right here. What that looks like, if I'm to kind of make a visual for you, is something like this. The red inserter will pick up items from here and move them over to that other side. However, the yellow inserters cannot reach over here, they cannot reach over here. Yellow inserters will instead do something closer to this, where they will pick up items on that side and move them to that side. So one additional gap's worth of space can now be used, and that's with that red inserter. And think about how that might affect the way that you build your factory. Think about the different ways that you might be able to now insert some materials a long distance that otherwise logistically we would be unable to do. Having the red inserter provides so much additional flexibility, and we will research some additional means of logistical flexibility very, very quickly. But for now, it's nice to know we now have a new red inserter. We've already seen power poles, we've seen pipes, we've seen underground pipes. I didn't really actually use an underground pipe in the past, so let me just show you real quick what that underground pipe can do. And I'll show you in the context of here. This is currently an underground pipe that is currently in use. If you have a belt, and I need the belt to go in this direction, well, clearly I can't just put a pipe here, and a pipe here, because you can only have one object occupying a space at any given time. So if I can't go through it, we can either go over it or we can go under it. Let's go under it. And so the underground pipe simply goes under it. As you can see here, this was the original setup that was had for this one smelter, or excuse me, for this one boiler. Let's put that into place now. And immediately this boiler and this steam engine setup is kicking on because we've got the coal, we've got the water now, we're making steam out of that, and now our power production's gone up even more than it was before. So that's the use of the underground pipe. We also have a couple of other things here. We've got these lamps. We've talked about those before. Stone bricks. We've mentioned that you can craft those, you can smelt those out of some basic stone products in a stone furnace. We have repair packs now. Repair packs are pretty nifty. Let me show you what the repair pack does. We have some buildings that maybe need some repairs. Like that building right there. It's got low health, and if I do not repair it, It's slowly going to tick down. It currently has 385 out of 400 hit points. If I take my repair pack tool and I left click and I just mouse over whatever needs to be repaired, it will repair that. These do have a certain amount of use before they are consumed. That took 8 out of 300 to heal that little bit of damage that had been taken from my pistol. So ultimately, it's always cheaper to repair things than to just buy a new one. Worth noting. Also worth noting that we are out of ammunition in this box. I'm just going to put the rest of my ammunition there. And while I'm talking, I'm going to craft some more ammunition. And I'm also going to put a little bit more coal here. One thing that's bothering me that I need to do, from here on out, we're going to play Factorio in the way that I like to play Factorio. I've played a lot of Factorio. And I need all 4 active quick bars. We went from 2 active quick bars up to 4. And let me put everything in the same spot. This is let me put everything in the same spot that I always do, is what I mean to say there. I highly recommend that if you're going to play, that you use the quick bars, and I highly recommend that you know exactly where everything ought to go on your quick bars. For now, I'm putting things like plates and coal and gear wheels into a slot in the quick bars, only because I know that I'm not going to have the usual things that I put there fill up very quickly. And so everything has a place, and that way I just know where to go for whatever items I'm trying to craft. Very important to just keep track of everything we need here. Oh, and let's put that there for now. Okay. What else? We've seen boilers, we've seen steam engines. These balloon lights are essentially what the lamps are. I do have a modification on that allows me to see in the dark a little bit. We do have electric mining drills. We have the offshore pump. We have the stone furnace. We have assembling machines. This is assembling machine is the same thing that we have down here. This is the thing that allows us to craft new items without having to worry about taking up our own crafting space, without having to babysit every little item. By the way, this belt has filled up. We also have plates, iron and copper. We have copper cable, iron sticks, gear wheels, electronic circuits. Oh, and what is this? Automation Science Pack. I'm not going to get to the military section in a sec. I'll get there in a second. I'm not going to get to the military section right now. But let's talk about these automation science packs. When the game indicated, when the engineer said, I guess it was something else. It was not something the engineer said. When the engineer or the game was telling us, hey, these science labs, these ways that you do your automation and you are able to get your technologies researched, they require the use of these science packs. There are several colors: red, green, black, blue, purple, yellow, and white. All of them are a different recipe to craft. They have different levels of technologies that they can unlock, and all of them can be crafted either by hand here by your little engineer, or they can be made in these assemblers that we have. So here in my little science lab, it says no research in the progress bar. So in the upper right here, let's click on the progress bar, and our goal was to create a stone wall. Here it indicates that there are these automation science packs. It's going to take red automation science packs. It's going to take about 10 seconds per lab per red science pack to get basically one portion of the 1% of the research completed, and it's going to take 10 of these science packs. So essentially, for this stone wall to be researched, it's going to be every red automation science pack is going to do 10% of the total research it takes to get walls researched. And that will unlock the ability to use those stone bricks that we had talked about earlier to make sections of wall. Sections of wall are very good for defending your base. They keep your turrets from getting unnecessary damage, things like that. The little tooltip here, of course, says walls to protect your factory against attackers. And so it's going to take 10 of those red science packs to create that, to get that researched. I'm going to hit this button right here. It says Start Research. It's going to go into this research bar. When I come out here, it now indicates in the upper right that stone wall is the next thing to be researched. But why is the lab not researching? It's because we don't have any of the science packs in here. Let's left click and let's bring 6 of these automation science packs into the lab. And immediately you see the progress bar as it's consuming this red potion, as it's consuming this science pack. That's getting us closer and closer to our ultimate goal. We just hit 10%, 11%, 12%. It keeps track in the upper right, and you can click on any individual science lab to determine how much longer does that lab have to go before it's going to generate 1%, whatever portion of the percentage it can create with one of its products. How close is it to completing? It is going to take all 10 of these science packs. I'm just going to put those in now. And while I'm doing this, I want a little bit of automation. So I have 3 of my assembling machines here. And I'm going to use those assembling machines to make sure that I don't have any problems making sure that this lab is full. I want this lab to forever be full of the resources necessary to continue researching whatever I'm trying to get. So what is the recipe? What's the cost? Well, here, if I go to this assembler machine and I say, I want you to craft the red potions, okay? I'm going to need copper plates, and I'm going to need iron gear wheels. Well, I'll tell you what, I can probably do something like this, where I have a box, and the box will simply hold, say, I don't know, 233 copper plates. Okay, and that will meet my demand for copper plates. And then how about here? I craft iron gear wheels. And for now, let's just do the same thing where we use a box filled with the raw materials necessary to make an iron gear wheel. And then that will slowly feed the necessary prerequisite materials to get these automation science pack recipes. The engineer says, completed research stone wall. Great, I can now build a wall to keep the enemies out, and then I can focus on more important matters. I need to scale up my production and research more advanced materials. So, then I should be able to build a car. Note that the disco lights are currently not on in our lab. That indicates that there's nothing actually currently being produced. Stone wall is 100% completed, but it will not automatically just go on to the next researchable technology for you. You need to go back to your menu here, and now the stone wall is currently here in green. All the completed technologies that we have researched are in green. That would be automation, which gave us the assembling machines and the red arms, the lamps, the gun turrets. We just completed the stone wall, and we have things like the submachine gun, a shotgun, and some shotgun ammunition. Those are all already researched. Things that we can currently research are in yellow, and things that have a prerequisite are in red. So, for example, I can't get heavy armor first. I need at least steel processing before that. So at this point, let's just go to logistics. This is going to take 20 of these red science packs, and they're going to be 15 seconds each to get their portion completed. So basically every red science pack is going to be 5% completion, and that's going to get us some faster and more flexible ways of transportation. Let's start that research now, and immediately the disco lights go back on. Of course, because we've talked about production and trying to be fast and quick and making sure that things are working at optimal speeds, I can throw down another one of these labs, and so long as it's powered, we can have 2 labs going. I don't believe that one assembling machine can actually keep up with 2 labs 100%, but it will do the absolute best it can, and these arms will alternate taking turns feeding some of these red science packs into these lab machines. But now, so long as we are able to keep iron in this box and copper in this box, we have more or less automated our science production and our science research. This is a very rudimentary way of doing this, but it's the way I've done so far. Let me just kind of fill out some of these things real quick. I want to make sure that I take care of just a little bit of housekeeping here. Some of that housekeeping being that, you know what, I recognize that I probably should just go kill these enemies because I just don't want to have to deal with continually feeding boxes of ammunition against these enemies. I sure can. And there's times where that makes the most sense. There's times where there's just too much and you don't have the technology to overwhelm your enemies. However, that should not be too much of a problem for me, especially because I know a couple of tips and tricks. For example, there is a little capsule here, just like there was in the previous tutorial. We'll pick that up, and that's going to be some red ammunition for us. And now our bullets hit harder, shoot just the same speed, but we hit things a lot harder. I'm going to dance out of the range of this worm. The worm can be there, and I don't care if the worm is there or not. In fact, the worm is going to continue to soak up some pollution, but I just don't care if they do that or not. As you can see, one entity has been destroyed. We lost a gun turret. This gun turret right here has been destroyed. Where those enemies came from, I'm not sure. Where did they come from? Where did they go? I really don't know, Cotton Eye Joe. But that's the one that we lost, and I suppose that then they tried to go take out the other gun turrets. The AI for these biters, for these native enemies, is going to always prioritize military buildings first. Things like radars, things like gun turrets, things of that nature. And as they do that, it's going to give us the opportunity to think about how we best want to approach the issues present with them trying to tear down everything that we've worked so hard to build. And that includes things like, well, I'll prioritize getting a choke point up, as we're going to do right here with our stone bricks. Remember, we just researched this wall. We could not have built that before, but now we got some raw materials to build some wall sections. And rather than go and actually destroy these biters here at their home base, I am just going to use this stone and I'm going to wall them off. Just like this. There's a nice little choke point here. Oh, I'm just a little bit short. I'm a little bit shy. What, 2 sections? 1, 2 sections? And even so, for some reason, I feel like they can get around. I'm going to do something silly. I'm going to use pipes instead. Pipes have much less hit points. Pipes have 100 health versus a wall that has 350, but it'll work. The enemies are going to try and damage the wall before they're able to get through and deal with these machines, with these gun turrets, and so everything should be just fine. It really should be just fine. If I wanted to set up something elaborate, I could bring power out here. I could have like an assembler machine right here that will then make more ammunition, and then that can just feed these directly. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to remember that, hey, I do need to go out there every once in a while and resupply. But I will have lots of advanced warning before that ever happens. We have completed logistics, which is the faster and more flexible ways of transportation. And on to the next thing, we're going to get the steel processing. That's going to take some time as well. But what exactly did we get for our trouble when we purchased the logistics? These 2 new things popped up. These are underground belts, and these are splitters. Real quick, I'm going to get rid of some of this ammo, and then I'm going to change my color real quick. If you ever want to change your color, it's here, kind of in your crafting menu. You left-click here, and you have the RGB. You have the red, blue, green slider. Let's just do like a nice kind of blue. That seems nice to me. But we purchased our splitters and our underground belts that we are able to now use. So we are very familiar with belts. We now have splitters and we now have underground belts. Underground belts come in pairs because there's no sense in having an entrance if you don't have an exit. And it's one of the most frustrating things in the world. Say that you somehow lose one of your belts like this, one of your undergrounds, and now I have an odd number of underground belts, and that will annoy you to no end. But for now, I'm just going to be aware of that. I'm going to prevent that from being a problem. Yes, it is absolutely ideal that you destroy your own base at every opportunity. Okay, so we know the belts have 2 sides, and you know that you're able to put things on the left, things on the right. And you know that you're able to use these belts to transport items around your base. Okay. The additional flexibility of having a splitter and an underground belt is massive. The splitter does exactly what it says. It will split items on the belt and take them in 2 different ways. It will always take evenly from whatever belt. Even if you have a mismatch of things, say you have gears on one side and these on the other side, and you have copper plates here and you have coal here, as you can see, it will split evenly, but it will only split based off of each side. And what I mean by that is this. If I have this splitter going here, if I have only the gear wheels on the left-hand side, then it will only spit out gear wheels on the left-hand side on these sides. It didn't split evenly there because it got backed up, and that's just kind of a function of that. But as you can see, it will evenly split when I put more material down these belts. If I want to have something go on both sides of the belt, kind of a deal, say that I have, let's just say that I have this whole stack of iron gears on my left-hand side, but I want to make one full belt, I can always just do something like that, where the splitter will split the stack and then it will just refeed into itself. Or I can use this to, say, have half of my iron production on one side, half of my copper production on the other side. And now I'm going to have 2 different ways I can send resources to different parts of my factory, more or less evenly. And then I'm able to build wherever I really, really want to. Yep, these are working. These are working just fine. So the splitter has a ton of uses, and we're going to see them used heavily, and the best thing I can do is really just not tell you about it, but show you as we get to building our factory. But the next thing we have now is these underground belts. Yellow underground belts can go 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles across, but then before they have to pop up, they can go less than that, of course, but they can go a max of 4 belts width between them. And this can be massive because you can get to the point. What's wrong here? Oh, it's working, but it's just working slowly. But you can use those underground belts to say, oh, let's say that I really want to get a building up here. Say that I really want to get a line of this. A line of copper plates. I don't want to keep just refilling this box. I want to just make sure that resources automatically get there. And so what can I do? Well, let's say that I go over this belt with my underground belt, or under it rather. And then if I just continue this, we will eventually get those resources up to this red science pack assembling producer. And in that way, we're able to continue our production and continue to automate our factory. If we didn't have our underground belts here, we would be in serious trouble, because you're always going to have this weird issue where you're mismatching belts and crossing and things like that. The additional flexibility of being able to weave belts and go under other production lines is massive. It's massive. It makes it from a flat 2D kind of a surface into a 3D space. Now, you only have underground belts. You don't have above ground belts. That's going to potentially come with Factorio 2.0, which is going to be released, I believe, they say sometime in December. I'm guessing it's going to be sometime in 2025. But ultimately, these underground belts provide a huge amount of flexibility to your factory. For now, I am going to not do what we just talked about, and the only reason is because we're going to make a better production line. Right now, this is a little bit in a weird spot. It's really kind of a bootstrapped process to just kind of get us through. But for the purposes of talking about what can the underground belts do for us, what can the splitters do for us, it gives us a lot of additional flexibility in how we manage our resources and manage our factory. Okay. So we're going to continue to let our science work. We're going to continue to let our power meet our current demands, because it's absolutely meeting all of our demands. And then we're going to notice, okay, where are things at? Well, we are currently not producing any iron plates really, because we're just not using them fast enough, because we are no longer making any of these gear wheels, and we are no longer making these belts. If I allow some production to be made, we can use some more of these iron plates. We are really in the same boat with these copper plates. And what that means is we can absolutely increase our production. We can increase our production by a lot. By a lot. And I think that that's obviously what we should do now. So we already have one belt here. Let's start using this belt of iron plates to build off of. And let's build the means to automate our science production. So the very first thing we're going to need is probably some more iron gear wheels. One thing I can do is I can left shift, right click, and that will copy whatever recipe is in that assembling machine. And then I can left click as I'm holding that shift, and it will copy the recipe over to this other machine. So shift and hold, left shift, hold, right click, keep holding the shift, and then left click, and that will allow me to paste resources, or excuse me, paste our recipes very quickly from one place to the other. Let's get an arm in there, and let's start making basically a line of these gear wheels. Why again for the gear wheels? Well, the red science packs do require iron gear wheels. Let's have a full production line of that. In fact, let's just make sure that we have plenty of production. Let's build a couple more of these assemblers. I'm going to build them one at a time just so that way I can use them as they come out. And before I do anything else, I also want to never have to worry about dealing with the biters ever again. And the best thing I can maybe do at this moment, rather than just destroying them completely, is automate the production of my ammunition. So let's do that now. So eventually this box is going to fill up. I'm going to say I only want about 200 firearm magazines. One slot is going to take 200 firearm magazines. I want to continue to create more of these iron gear wheels. I want to make sure that these get onto the belt. And then I recognize that I have an opportunity here where, because I have a left side of the belt and I have a right side of the belt, I can use my copper here. I can send it on over, and I can do something funny where I will do an underground here to here, to here. I will bring the copper around, and then it will automatically feed onto this belt. So now I have one belt that is being populated by our copper production line and populated by these iron gears that are currently pulling from this iron belt. And then I'm able to build 1, 2, 3. Let's just call it 3 right now of these red science packs. And now, as you notice, power production is a very important thing. Where am I going to put my power poles? I could do something in between here. I could leave one space in between my different assemblers, so that way I can just sneak a power pole in there. And that'll work. That'll make sure that the machines are powered. But it's always going to be something to consider. You know, how am I going to power my factory? What's the best way? At this point, I'm literally just going to do some belts on the side, or excuse me, some power poles on the side. I think that will serve my needs quite well. I'm going to send in the inserters to make sure that we are pulling resources off. But then how do I get the red science packs out? Well, remember we had talked about having the long-handed inserters, our red inserters. We're going to use those. We're going to place them still within the power. And we now have this output of red science. And now with 3 of these assemblers creating the red science, the automation science, we should have a fairly sustainable long-term option for feeding our science labs. So I'm just going to create some space here. Sometimes you chop down trees because you need resources, and sometimes you chop down trees because you need space, and sometimes you get grenades and you grenade trees down because they are the bane of your existence and you don't want to deal with them anymore. You never want to look at them ever again. Speaking from experience, just saying. Otherwise, check our power. Our power's pretty good. Let's look at our labs. We'll start building 2 more, but we know that we have 2 here currently. And I'm going to kind of build them over here on this side, knowing that I'm probably going to have some additional science requirements later. But for now, this will start our process. And now we are automatically feeding science into the labs, and we just have to make sure that we are always researching something, and we will continually get ahead. Let's now research electronics. Electronics is just something that comes after automation, and it can allow us to get secondary assemblers. You have to have the first level of assemblers. You can get a second tier, a better, faster type of assembler. And this will also allow us to get fast inserters. It'll allow us to get the blue inserters. We have so far 3 different types of inserters. We have these black ones, we have these yellow ones, and we have these red ones, and each of them is useful in its own right. Notice that this one is the one that's coal powered. Notice that these ones are the ones that require electricity, and they all of course have different drawbacks to them and different pluses to them. Notice that here in the bottom right, whenever there's this little red triangle, that's going to indicate to me that there's a problem somewhere in the factory. I was not quick enough to click on it there, but if I am left clicking on that, I will be able to notice, hey, what's the problem? It was indicating to me, not that this was out of ammunition, but it was indicating to me that my tower walls here, my walls were taking some damage. I'm just going to make sure that I have, what's that, 42 and 46 bits of ammunition in those gun turrets. That should solve my problems for the next foreseeable future. It's not indefinite, but it should solve my problems for now. Remember that we just completed, where is it? Steel processing. Okay, so we completed steel processing. And after we completed steel processing, we noticed that we have some more of these yellow, what do you call them, exclamation points in the upper left of our different tabs. So if I left click on the logistics tab, there's a new recipe. It says steel chest. If I get 8 steel plates, I am able to get some new steel chests. They are an improvement on the wooden and the iron chests. Wooden chests are very cheap, but they have a very small storage size. Iron chests are, you know, kind of the middle of the road there, and they have a medium size of storage. And then of course the steel chests are the best chests you can get as far as basic storage, and you can store 48 different stacks of things in there. But again, it gets a little more expensive. That's the general progression, is that better things are more expensive. That just makes sense, doesn't it? In this other tab here, though, in the intermediate production tab, we now have a new thing, steel plates. And this recipe says it takes 5 iron plates and 16 seconds of crafting time, and it says it is made in a furnace. This is one of the examples of things that we cannot hand make. I cannot grab some of this iron ore have it in my hand, and then just find a way to make this iron ore magically into iron plates. It cannot be crafted by hand. You must smelt it. Steel is the exact same way. And so steel presents us with a somewhat unique opportunity to utilize this structure that's currently in place. I'm going to pick up some of the stone here. I'm going to pick up, I like to do things in bulk. We're going to make 20 stone furnaces, but we're only going to use 2. I'm going to go 1 here, 1 there. And then rather than pull more of this iron ore off of the belt or somehow change the recipe in here, I'm going to take these arms and rather than have the arms put items onto this belt from the outside, I'm going to rotate them and bring iron plates off of the belt and put them back onto this spot here. And so now, once this smelter is fueled, it will turn these iron plates 1 by 1, or rather 5 by 5 in groups of 5, into steel beams, steel plates. So the way I'm going to fuel this, just because I don't want to get my lines mixed up, I don't want to have iron ore here and then maybe I run out of iron plates for some reason, and then I accidentally get some of this iron ore into my smelters, and then it will automatically change the recipe from steel back into iron plates. Just to avoid that problem, I'm going to use a smelter. I'm going to get rid of this belt for just 1 second, just so that way I can keep things nice and clean. And then I'm going to click on my splitter, and it has some great functions on it. I can do some input priorities, and I can do some output priorities, and the output priority actually has a filter on it, and that's what I'm really going to be going for. So this is orientated to whichever direction that the splitter is going. So this is always the right side, this is always the left side. This is now the right side, this is now the left side. It just depends on where it is going. The orientation is the top part, the exit part of the splitter is always the top part, and that should be your right, left, right, left. And I'm going to use that actually to use this filter. I'm going to say I'm going to want to filter only coal. I only want to have coal, and it's only going to be on the right side. There's this nice little indicator here. If I swap back and forth, left, right, it gives you a visual indicator of, okay, so where is the coal going to go? And so when I do that, and I reconnect this belt, there's now only coal here, and there's only iron ore there. And once I have just a couple of arms, of which I am very impatient for, as I increase production here, then you're going to see that I have something new and wonderful here. I'm able to use the coal off this belt and then smelt this. And then it makes plenty of sense to me to simply stick a box here, and in that way I will collect my steel. You know what? I've changed my mind. There's this nice little spot right here. How about we just go here, here, and then all of our steel goes into one little box here. And now we have turned our iron plates into steel plates with no problem. No problem. It looks like there's going to be potentially some problems. This side of the belt is getting used more frequently than this side of the belt. And so these smelters are going to be working full bore, full tilt all the time. These side, not so much. That's okay. It's fine for now. But you always want to keep track of which side of the belt is getting used more quickly. And there's lots of things that we can do to mitigate those problems in the future. But for now, we're going to leave that as it currently stands. I was very embarrassed and very sad that every time I crafted an inserter, I needed to make a green circuit. So let's say to ourselves, well, we've got this belt here that has the copper, and there's this belt here that has the iron. How about we find a way to start automating the production of our green circuits? Let's do it like this. Let's take an underground belt. Remember, it can only go to about here, and that's going to be a problem because there's no space really for this line of copper plates to come out. But I really want to get it on over here so I can make some production go in this other way. Things are getting a little bit crowded over here. I want to try to keep some space. So what can I do? I'm going to make another underground belt from here to here. And that's going to immediately open up some possibilities for me here. And as you can see, I'm keeping my belts nice and clear, nice and tidy. No problems. One other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to make just a couple more splitters. Well, I'll do that later. I'll make a couple more splitters, and I'm going to make this from a half belt into a full belt. Likewise, I could do something like this, which I'm going to do just because I might as well. And I'm going to pull out another whole half of the line. Another whole half of the line is going to be put into production for copper. I don't think it's needed, but it'll work very, very quickly. And in that way, I'm just going to make sure that there is input on both sides of this belt here. Just like that. And it'll fill up pretty quickly. Otherwise, let's get back to the task that we had talked about starting originally. I'm going to want to get some of these green circuits, iron plates, copper plates. There's a lot to be said about recipes having certain ratios here in Factorio. For example, it's going to take how many copper cables to create one electronic circuit? That's going to be 3 copper cables. So one assembling machine can absolutely feed this bit of electronic circuit production, but if I have 2, then I'm actually going to be able to keep it up with no breaks in the line. I'm able to pull off resources of iron onto this assembling machine quicker than I am able to get it out of just one of these copper producing assembling machines. And so it makes a lot of sense to me to have some additional assembling machines, trying to make sure that we have no breaks in the line and we're able to really push our production without any bottlenecks. And this is the way I'm going to do it. And now once I've set up my basic structure here, I'm going to make sure that there's power. And now we've got electronic green circuits being produced. And we're going to throw those into a box. Well, you can ask yourself, should I put everything into a box or should I put it on the line? For now, we're going to put green circuits into a box. Later, it's going to make a lot of sense to have massive, massive lines of green circuits. You are going to make so many green circuits in Factorio, it's not even funny. Except it kind of is, because it's really nice to see these machines. When I mouse over my assembler, it'll keep track of how many products it's finished. So if you look here on the right-hand side, under the little icon for the assembling machine, it says, next to the red dot, it says output full, crafting speed, things like that. Right below that, it says products finished, 206. This assembling machine has made 206 gear wheels. This one's made 21. We've made 64 red potions, red science packs here, and 46 here, and 32 here. It's just very nice to know that you can keep track of how much production you're getting. So far, we've made 36, 37 of these green circuits. There they are. And you're going to end up making so many green circuits, and it's going to be great for you. You're going to love it. Trust me, you're going to love it. Okay, we need to keep our production going here. We just completed these the electronics, and that's going to give us the opportunity to get the fast inserters. We're going to get the fast inserters real quick just so we can kind of finish up talking about those. How's our steel production going? It's going. It's not going very fast, but it is going, and that's just fine. This is probably a good time to make sure that our production for electricity has no more problems. This is a time where using a burner inserter might not be a bad thing. Rather than use a yellow inserter that requires electricity, so long as I've got coal on this belt, these inserters are never going to stop working. They will always fuel themselves from the belt, and so people will tell you, well, you should probably use the electronic inserters. I would recommend that you have at least a few on any base, on any power supply, that are burner inserters, because then they will always work even if your power demands are such that you completely run out of power, you completely run out of the coal necessary to turn the water into steam to then power your factory. Because if your factory goes dead because you don't have enough power production, then that means that your yellow arms are not going to be able to pull coal off the belt and then get the power production started up again. It's nice to have some simple arms in place that can always work regardless of what your power looks like. But otherwise, let's build 1, 2, and 1 of these steam engines. Remember, there's a ratio. You can get 2 steam engines for every 1 boiler. There's 2 boilers here. We can do 1, 2 here, and we got 1 other boiler there. This is going to make our power never again a problem. Note that we do now have to get a couple more of these power poles. We're really kind of burning through these power poles, but as you can see, if you take a look back, our factory is really starting to take shape. And it is fairly self-sufficient. Before, we had this little blob here where we had our labs, and those labs were requiring the materials that were fed into a box, and then the box took it from there. Well, now we just took our production lines and have directly made it so these are never going to run out. So long as this is still going, it's never going to run out. And that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we're researching things pretty fast, we're going to research a new thing. We are researching now a new type of science. This is the logistics science pack. So far, everything that we've researched has only required red science pack, but there are some things that will require not just the red, but also green, sometimes blacks, blue, purple, yellow, white. There are going to be researchable things that require more than just what red science can provide. And so by combining red with green science packs, we are able to unlock a new tier of research types. What that's going to require is a certain new infrastructure that will be able to automate this now green science. We've automated the red science, that's not a problem, but now we're going to need to automate the production of green science. And so then that way we can feed the green science packs. They are known as the logistics science packs. We can then feed those into our labs as well and unlock that upper tier of research. To use the labs to research automobilism, as is our objective, we're absolutely going to not want to handcraft 250 of these green science packs. We're going to want to automate that and make sure that the process just handles itself. And we can set it and forget it. We can leave it as much as possible. That's my plan anyway. We're at 80% right now. Let's take a quick look and see if there's anything else that I really want to start automating or I want to show you. We now have the blue arms, by the way, the fast inserters. And we also have the purple inserters. We got both of those from the previous tech. They work just like the other inserters, except these ones swing much, much faster. For example, let me just put a box right here. Compare that arm to this arm. And there's no question which one is faster. The blue inserters rotate 864 degrees per second, whereas these yellow ones only rotate at 302 degrees per second. So more than twice the speed of a yellow inserter do the blue inserters go. So nice to have some new ways that we can get things moving. And then at the same speed that the blue inserters work, we also now have these purple inserters. These purple inserters are the filter inserters, much like we did with our splitter here, and we were able to filter out some materials. We can now also use these purple filter inserters to filter out resources that we don't want to have in a certain spot. So let's say that in this instance, we knew that we were trying to get some items onto some parts of a new belt. Say right here, I want to get some of these gear wheels back up here for some other production for an assembly line, but I don't want to bring over everything. Like if I have a yellow arm, it will bring over both the gears and the copper plates. Right now it's going to get stuck, but the point is that it can, and it can bring over the wrong thing. If I'm trying to get the copper plates right now, this arm is definitely not going to do the job. However, the filter inserter will of course filter out, and you can just set and say, I want copper plates here, and it will give you a clear indication of what's to be set there. I can add, of course, what other materials I want. I could have a sushi belt where I have lots of different items on the belt going in a circle, and round they go, and where they stop, nobody knows. And then I could have some kind of system in place where, despite all these different items being on the belt, despite all the different possibilities and weird stuff going on, I can have these pull off exactly what I'm looking for. And it can sort, and it can separate, and it can move things to the desired place. That's just a little bit of a strange example, but there are times where a filter inserter is the exact right thing for the job. And that's one of the things I love about Factorio, is that there's been a lot of polish that's been put in the game to make sure that you have exactly what you need when you need it. We just completed the green science pack, and now you can see here right below the different researches, this takes just red, just red, just red, just red. Red and green science packs are required to research automation 2, engines, and logistics 2. So we see the need now to get our green science production up really quickly. Let me just go deal with some native friends over here. This is the alert section. If I left click on it, it will tell me where the alert is. Yellow just indicates right now that 2 turrets are engaged with the enemy. When it was red just a second prior, that was indicating to me that there was something taking damage. So mousing over just indicates 2 turrets are engaged with the enemy. See the map for details. I left click on this, it'll bring up my map. It'll let me know what's going on here. And look how we've automated our defenses. Beautiful. Beautiful. And let me just make sure that these are topped off here. 120 and 110. That should be plenty. That should be good. One quick thing that I haven't shown you yet. There are fish in the lake. If I right click on them, I just picked up 5 raw fish. If I take damage from an enemy, as you're going to see in just 1 second. Ow, I'm taking damage. Not good. I'm slowed. I'm getting hit by biters. Not good. Let me go grab my fish, put them into my hand, and then left click. And as I do, it's going to restore 20% of my total hit points. I just consumed 3 fish there, and that took me from fairly low health up to much more health. One thing that is an opportunity that better be in Factorio 2.0 or else I'm going to riot is being able to put the raw fish into a smelter, because that just makes sense to me that, hey buddy, I want to cook my fish. Give me the opportunity to cook my fish. I don't care if it doesn't do anything at all. I just want to be able to cook my fish. But for now, I'm eating raw fish. What else do they do? Not much, but basically it just heals 80% physical health. You can use fish and guns to really just destroy your enemies. It's pretty terrific. Okay, so it's worth noting that on my quick bar here, there's some things that I am currently lacking. Things like the underground belts, things like the splitters, things like these transport belts. It's a good idea to kind of create those products that you can quickly pick up, and so you don't have to worry about making more. It'll just speed up things for the future. But for now, we don't have our things like our underground belts or our splitters automated. We will get to that later. Right now, we want to get our green science production going as we had currently talked about. So let me grab one of these assemblers as I craft a couple more. And let's click on the assembler to see what does it take to get this logistics science pack. It looks like the ingredients required are transport belts and inserters. Ah, okay, so transport belts and inserters. For the first time, we have a recipe that requires 2 intermediate products. You absolutely cannot just simply have these transport belts. Those don't just grow on trees. They don't just get mined out of the ground. We're going to have to make those first. And so the best thing we can do is figure out, do I have transport belts currently being made in my factory somewhere else? And do I want to pull them off of that production line? Or do I want to make some new production strictly for the purpose of fueling my production of green science? It would be pretty easy just to go here and do the exact same thing that we've done up here to make these transport belts. As it stands, I don't think I'm going to need a whole ton more transport belts. I think that I can do something where I pull the items out of the assembler machine and I put the belts on the belts, and then I have, just in case there's a problem, I have a new box that will gather, let's just say I'm only going to need 100 belts at a time. But now I currently have transport belts on a belt. I could put some on additionally, whatever. Okay, so half of our recipe requirement is completed. Now what do we need? Inserters. This is where it's going to get a little tricky, because inserters are going to take iron gears, iron plates, and electronic circuits. We have electronic circuits here. Well, let's not reinvent the wheel. We will slowly pull some iron gear or some green circuits off of this belt. We do have the opportunity to make another gear assembling machine. I'm going to send it back over this belt onto its own other belt. And in fact, I'm going to make it so that these belts meet up. So I have 2 of my 3 necessary products to get inserters present there. And now remind me, what is the last thing you need for inserters? That recipe is also going to take iron plates. So between these 2 belts, we have everything we need to create our inserters. Let's make 2 spots where we have inserters, 1 and 2. Let's get them powered. And then as we pull these resources down, let's use a combination of yellow inserters and red inserters to get all the necessary materials where we ought to go. Just like that. Now, it looks like we got a problem. What's the problem? It looks like our production of iron ore is complete. It is doing everything it's supposed to be doing, and this belt is completely full. But between our production of steel and between our consumption of the iron plate for gears and things like that, we are now officially in a little bit of a bind. We are not getting materials down the belt. This is a normal logistical problem, and the best thing we can do to solve that is make sure that we have sufficient production on top of our sufficient mining. And so let's set up a new smelting array. And so how we're going to do this is I'm actually going to erase a little bit of this. I'm going to get rid of some of this current production just so I can manage things and put some better functions in place. Again, it doesn't cost anything to pick up belts or any of the materials or any of the buildings that you put down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it just like this. It's going to be a very small smelting array. I could do long ones. I could do, oh boy, I could do smelting arrays that are that long. The only thing that's really stopping you from doing an incredibly long smelting array is the issue of, well, are you going to be able to get all of the materials down the belt? Noting that as things are trying to pick up items, if you're not getting resources all the way on this belt down to the very end of your production line, what's the point if everything's been all used up? But otherwise, let's just start to make a little bit of some new structure here. Make sure that whatever we have on this belt is now going to be able to get into these smelters. And then let's find a way to get some of these materials where they have been wanting to go. I'm going to put one additional belt there. That's going to mean that as I manipulate this belt, that it's going to stay separate. If I rotate this belt away and this wasn't here, it makes one long belt, and that's not what I want at this moment. I want to have two separate belts. I want to make like a little T-junction here and a T-junction here. But this will let me get some splitters here. I'm going to send one bit of my iron ore this way. I'm going to send one bit of my iron ore this way. Notice, of course, that as I step on a belt that I will be transported with the belt. I think that that's a nice touch. One other thing I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to split off my coal now. I've already got the coal automated, but now I can use my splitter and I can use some undergrounds to move the materials to both sides of the production line. And in this case, I could have absolutely gone, you know, up and around. I could have done it like that. I chose not to. I just chose to do two undergrounds there. And now you can see that the inserters are powered. You can see that we have another line of coal and iron ore production. And you can see that these smelters are now working. And if I'm able to then, get the materials off of these belts with just a little bit of extra power, then we're going to have everything we need to potentially meet all of our production demands. There's no guarantees. There's never any guarantees, but it's always, I think it's quite probable to assume that this is going to at least help until we recognize that there's a new problem. I'm going to use this splitter rather than just use the splitter to split things, and rather than just have this belt run into this belt. I'm going to use the splitter here to combine these belts, and it's going to focus on just one side at a time. It's going to take them evenly, but it's going to basically make one long line here. Everything that comes out here is going to go there. But then what's the problem that we see? Well, obviously now we don't have enough iron ore to meet our demand here. What does that mean? That means we need to increase our mining operation. There's one more iron ore patch right here, and that's probably going to be our limiting factors, that we just have these two small patches. Once those run out, we are going to be in trouble. I don't think that there's actually any other iron ore on the map. There's really not. But we're going to use the iron ore that we are able to mine from here to also add to our iron ore production and make things go in a good way for us. Now, when you first start off with Factorio, there's lots of different ways that you're going to end up trying to mine resources. Something like this will work on a small patch. This will absolutely work on a small patch. All your miners are powered. Pretty much every section of the iron ore patch is covered. But on bigger patches, if you kind of have this weird little hodgepodge, say it was a bigger patch, I can't really put, I can't really build right on top of this power pole. How do I power the machines while still having every little bit of the patch properly electrocuted is not the right word. Help me. Powered. What's the best way we can do that? I'll tell you right now that the best way, and the way that you see me do this, and the way you see a lot of people do this, is you end up using the logistics that you've researched, and you use the underground belts in conjunction with regular belts to make sure that you have power at all the appropriate machines, but also you then are able to take the belts and go. I can manually go belt, 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 08, underground, or I can simply click and drag. If you notice here, I can use these belts really quickly. I can also use these belts really quickly, and if I just left click and hold, it will automatically make undergrounds where there are undergrounds that are possible. And so in this case, I'm just going to go like this, and it's going to use an underground to get through the places where my power poles are currently connected. I'm going to do that on both sides. First, I do have to put the power poles down, otherwise that technique is not going to work. And now once I hook this up to some power, all of these miners are going. We just went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electric mining drills up to 23. We have more than tripled. We have nearly quadrupled. We've just under quadrupled our production of iron ore. We're going to be in a pretty good spot. I'm going to pull these belts together, and I could either do something like that where it's just one big belt, or I'm going to do it like this actually, and I'm going to do just a splitter real quick. And I'm going to, of course, feed this back into my main production line. The choice is always yours in how you manage these logistics. And again, that's part of kind of where the fun comes from. For me, I think that this is not how I would like to do this. I would really like to tear out most of these structures and kind of start over again, because this just looks odd to me. It'll work, but you're going to have problems because you're going to get back up here in these belts. It's going to be a little bit ugly as you get backed up, because these machines are going to stop working because, as you can see, like right here, there's no place to put raw materials onto the belt. This is getting backed up. These machines are going to turn off. This is not a great solution. I don't really like it, but it'll work. And there's something I said in the last tutorial walkthrough, and that is, if it is not broke, don't fix it. If it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid. That's very important to just kind of remember there. And so we are now fully saturating these belts. We're making sure that all these machines have what they need, and we are finally getting backed up. All of our machines that need iron plates are currently being used. Okay, let's get back to our original deal. Somehow, right, we got sidetracked. That happens a lot, and that's just fine. Oftentimes, it's not a bad thing to get your research completed and then take a look and see, okay, what's the new thing that I just researched, and then what it's going to take to then play around with that little bit of new material, that new thing that I can buy. In this case, it was our green logistic science packs, and then we started to kind of work backwards from there. Okay, well, we already have these belts. Great. So we will use those. We're not going to do some additional production there, but oh, what else do we need? We need inserters. Okay, well, we better jump on that. Let's get some inserters out. And then that led us to the problem of, oh wait, we don't have enough production here because we don't have any iron plates. Well, that's a problem. So what do? Well, how about we go fix that problem? Oh, the issue is that we're not having enough miners. Okay, well, we need to build more of these miners to get more of the iron ore, and then we got to smelt it. Oh, wait, but we had to make sure that we put in the additional smelting array so that way we could smelt it faster. And so you see that you run into these fun little issues, and it is fun. It is fun. It is a factory. You are in charge of it, and it's just a fun little production that you have to figure out and manage. As it stands, there's a lot of things you can do. But for now, our goal is, let's get a couple more of these assembling machines, and let's get some green production flowing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my green production just under this red science belt, the kind of belt that has all of my science on it. And I'm going to belt in this here, and the arms here, the inserters, I'm going to put up here, 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 and here. And now we have one belt here, and that's going to be all the things that are necessary to create our green logistic science packs. Bring them down, power it, make sure we have an output. And now we've got green science being produced. And again, as we've talked about before, it is more or less an indefinite loop. Oops. Let's pull this up. And I'm going to do that just so that way this arm here actually has a chance to pick up these green potions as they go by. If these potions get dropped off here on the right side of the belt, as they would like to do, if this is just one long belt instead of a T-junction, then they're going to get dropped off over here and it's going to miss this first inserter. But now we have green science and red science in our labs, and we are able to research things like the engine, which is a prerequisite for automobilism. That's the goal. We are still a long way from getting all this completed. It's going to take basically 100 red and 100 green science packs just to research engines. It's going to take another 200, so 300 total to get the logistics 2. And then on top of that, it's going to take another 100 to get automobilism. We can wait forever if you'd like to. I would prefer not to. Let's create some space. Let's beef up our production, and let's take the training wheels off. Let's just go full tilt. We've talked about the theory. We've talked about, everything that kind of goes into this basic production here. Let's really start to increase our production, and I'm going to start by just making sure that I have space for the structures necessary to actually create the research. That will be the labs. And so as I'm creating some labs by hand, I am also clearing out the space, and I produced 9 and 10 additional labs. Let's just bring them out in a swath here. The question whenever you recklessly abandon like this is this. Well, okay, I like increasing my production. Do I have enough infrastructure to back this up? I can tell you right now that 3 of these red science packs are probably not going to be enough. 1 green inserter, 1 green circuit producer is not going to be enough. We're going to have to do a lot of automation there, but at this point, what else are we going to do? We have the labs working. They're going to work at their own pace. We're going to figure this out. And in the meantime, we just need to kind of continue with what we got here. And this is the problem right now that I have with the idea of doing Factorio kind of in a streaming type of mindset. You can absolutely stream Factorio. People do it all the time, and they do it fairly well. I think, though, that the problem is that to really do these things effectively, you do have to do a certain degree of concentration, right? Thankfully, this is all stuff that I've done thousands of times, right? Setting up that little deal, that might be a little bit of brain power for somebody else to work through. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's obvious. Maybe it's self-evident and I'm just out of touch. But otherwise, it's hard to really do things appropriately, effectively, and talk at the same time. I've only got so much brain power. And while I have now doubled our green science production, now I have this issue. Oh, what am I going to do with my red science production? I've got a plan. Don't worry. But, if you have problems and you have to problem solve them, well, there can potentially be some issues where you mess up, where you think you have it under control and you don't. And then you're in a little bit of a bad spot. In this case, what am I going to do? I just want to make sure I have a little bit of space here. And then I think that this is actually going to be enough. This should make it so I'm able to produce everything I need for the red science. I don't know if 2 inserters assemblies is going to be able to keep up with that. It looks like it's not going to be able to keep up with that. So we're going to have to increase that. Before we do that, we're absolutely going to have to increase our green circuit production here. Here, and there. I'm going to readjust all this. This is an example of a teardown. It's not a bad thing to tear it down. In fact, it's probably the most necessary thing you can do is learn to let go. Learn to let go and just say, you know what, I found out that I need to do things in a better or different way. We just completed the engine. We're going to go on to the logistics 2. And while we're doing that, I'm going to take out these 200 steel plates that I have, and I'm going to do something real quick. I'm not going to make a whole production line at the moment, although I certainly could. I'm just going to put the necessary materials to start creating engine units. It's going to be one of those things that we cannot craft by hand. Much like the smelting can only be done in a smelter, you can only make engine parts in an assembler. I cannot make engine parts by hand. This recipe cannot be crafted by hand. So let me just put in steel plates, let me put in gear wheels, and then let me do something like this. And what is this, you say? Well, I'm just going to make sure that the pipes are being made here. You know what? I hate myself for even thinking that was going to be acceptable. No, let's just bring our production out here real quick. It doesn't matter where the engine parts get put out at the moment. Later on, they are going to be an intermediate recipe, but that's only going to be more or less for things that you will find in the full game. Right now, here in the tutorial, it's really not going to matter. And so then the best way I can do this is probably something like this. We're going to have the engine parts here in the middle. We're going to have gear wheels here. We're going to have pipes right here. Where's my pipes? There's my pipes. It's not a bad idea to have a full line, much like we have of all these plates here. It's not a bad idea to have a full line of just the gear wheels. And in fact, oftentimes what you'll see me do is exactly that. But as it stands, as gear wheels are produced, as the pipes are produced, it will feed those intermediate resources there. And then I can do something like this where pick up some more of these green circuits. I can do something where then I do have my box of just steel. I'll put that there. But also, I mean, if I had some other burnable fuel around here, if I wanted to bring some coal all the way out here, I sure could. I sure could. And in so doing, I could then have some smelters set up right here. As it stands, I might as well do that. I'll just bring a little bit of this iron plate off of the line, and I'm just going to hand feed that with however much wood I have. There's 100 wood there, and then there's 50 coal there. That's going to keep these smelters going for quite some time. Bring them off the line. And then it's a very ugly solution, and ideally you have your own smelting arrays just for steel. Because I know that I'm going to need steel in such small quantities for the tutorial, I'm taking a little bit of a shortcut. Please forgive me. Okay. Otherwise, notice that we have stopped our research. We've stopped production. Why is that? Well, we are out of inserter arms. Why are we out of inserter arms? We're out of inserter arms because we're out of electronic circuits. Why are we out of electronic circuits? It's because you tore it down because you said you were going to expand it, and then you got distracted doing something else. Do you see the problem? Yes, I do see the problem. Right now, let's just manually feed the green circuits in here so that production can continue. Let's just make sure that things continue while I'm doing some other stuff. You will often find that you get distracted. Oh, there was a biter attack. Yeah, well, that was a problem, and, you know, you needed to take care of things, of course. As you needed to take care of them, sure, you needed to take care of it. But if you forget to come back, you're going to be wondering in an hour why production is stopped and why you're not researching anything and why you haven't been researching anything for the last hour. And you're going to feel a little bit sad and maybe a little bit foolish. But don't worry, it happens to every single one of us, so do not feel bad. Okay. But now we've gone from just one green circuit producing kind of structure into 3. We've just tripled our green circuit production. But now we just got to figure out a way to get it over here. I do still want to have this assembler just spitting out some green circuits into this box here. That's going to be nice for me. But then these other ones, I really want to get them out and about. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to do something a little weird like this. I'm going to have a squiggle belt. I'm going to make sure that it is powered. That squiggle belt is. And then using the power of the underground belts, I'm going to make sure that we get production here. Now what's the problem here? Well, you got all the green circuits you could want, but you're out of iron gear wheels. Why am I out of iron gear wheels? I don't know. Trace it back all the way to the very back and just see what's up. Oh, that's right. We had a structure here and we tore it down. Why did we tear it down? I don't know. We just wanted to make room for all this other structure. Okay, well, how am I going to feed things back into my production line here? I could do it right here. I think that I've kind of committed to having some weird stuff going on over here. It's not efficient with my space, but it'll work. So then this inserter assembler is going to always be fed with gear wheels. And then if I can just get a little bit of help here, I'm going to be able to get the iron plates into this gear wheel assembler and then into this inserter arm. And now we should have no problems. Just to speed up production, I'm going to put a couple of gear wheels in here because I think that I actually craft gear wheels a little bit slower than I really want to for that purpose. I see that my gun turrets are doing just fine. It does keep track of kills. 201 kills here, 242 here, nearly 60 magazine clip ammo, 75 there. We're not going to worry about it. It's fine. And then slowly this turns back on. Slowly the factory comes back alive. One thing I did not do because I was rushed is I did not put exit on these engine parts. And I need to do that, otherwise we're going to run into some problems there. Okay. I'm actually going to pull the steel plates back into my inventory because I think that this system is working out pretty well there. Okay. Now do we have the correct ratio? Now, do we have enough supporting infrastructure to indefinitely produce the green science and the red science? I think the red science is fine. Currently, red science is backed all the way up. That's not going to be a problem. Green science is currently, I think, trying to catch up. But, as you can see, are we getting the green logistics all the way down to the end? We just have. Being able to have your machine go from a cold start into completion is fantastic, and not always easy to do, number one. And so I'm not going to chalk that one up to my own personal genius. I'm just going to say that it just so happened that the ratio is correct. If I wanted to help jumpstart my base, sometimes I can just move some of these resources from one spot to the other. Other things we can do here, just to make sure that we have everything that we need here, is just go through our inventory and just make sure, are we producing one of everything? So, let's see. Are we making transport belts? Yes, we are. And we got a little box here from the transport belts where they're coming off. Okay, great. How about underground belts? Are we currently making those anywhere? No, we are not. That's an opportunity that we could take to start making some additional stuff. Same with the splitters, same with the long-handed, the red inserters, same with the blue inserters, same with pipes, same with underground pipes. These are all things that we could make and we could automate if we wanted to. As it stands, there's not really a problem with handcrafting everything, except that later on you're going to say to yourself, man, I wish that there was an easier way of doing this. On a small scale, you can micromanage the shit out of your factory, and that's just fine. But this game is meant to be optimized. It was optimized in its production and in its development so that you can make absolutely massive factories. And when you're talking grand scale, you don't want to take the time to just say, oh yeah, I'll make 10 green circuits. No. You're going to want to have those already ready to go. You're going to have your production time and your brain power freed up because, hey, I already made a system once that'll make this whole thing work. I didn't want to have to make it again and again and again. Are we getting these resources all the way down to the end? Barely. What do we need to do? We need more smelters. Let's make more smelters here. We've got plenty of stone. And actually, before I get too far, let me just make sure that we have enough copper. I think that we got plenty of copper, but that would be a little bit sad if all of a sudden we realized that we were running out of that. Okay. Why was I picking up those electric miner drills? When this little dot here goes to green, that means it is operating normally. As you can see right here, operating normally. Yellow means it is operational, but it has no space. There's a problem with actually putting out the resources onto the belt. And then if it goes red, that means that that miner has run out of mineable resources. Okay, our copper production, as we can see here, is going just fine. Our iron ore production's fine. How is our production of coal? It's okay. I might as well just throw on another miner there just in case, though. Let's just make sure it stays fine. And then what else? We've got our new opportunities for smelting arrays. Let's just make it over here. Let's give ourselves some space so we can feed belts back the other way. Worth noting that we are almost completing our red logistic belts. So, Yellow belts are not the only speed of belts that you have in this game. You have yellow, red, and blue. Blue are the absolute fastest that you can possibly get. I want you to make sure that you know that faster is not always the most appropriate choice that you can make. Why is that? Well, the issue with that is that you have a certain amount of items you can fit on one belt at any given time. And just because it gets there faster doesn't mean in the grand scale of things that actually matters. Because this yellow belt, yeah, it'll get there eventually. Getting items there faster doesn't really matter in the long run because your mining capabilities or all these other things, that's going to be your limiting factor, not necessarily how fast you can get resources down the end. Where having a faster belt matters is for throughput. These yellow belts are able to have, as you can see, it says belt speed 15 items per second. Left and right side, about 15 items per second can be transported through this transport belt. When we go up to red belts, it will go from 15 items up to 30. Where that's important is this. Eventually, we cannot have an unlimited line of these smelters all the way down because you're not going to have enough resources to get all the way down to the end of the belt. If you have a red belt that has a higher capacity that goes from 15 items per second up to 30 items per second, you can have longer lines here. You can have longer lines in other spots where you have a lot of use and a lot of demand on your belts. For now, it'll be just fine to use yellow belts because they are very inexpensive and it's still going to get the job done for us. So we just created the Logistics 2 and that will unlock fast transport belts, fast underground belts, and fast splitters. Note that to make 2 fast underground belts, like an entrance and an exit, that's 40 iron gear wheels. That is nearly 100 iron plates just to get 1 fast underground belt. Whereas 1 yellow underground belt takes 17 iron plates. Huge difference. 97 down to 17. Yes. Is it worth it to get a little bit faster, to get more throughput? There are times when absolutely, where you're going to want to make sure that you have that additional throughput. You're going to want to make sure that you have the infrastructure to make as many of those red belts and those red undergrounds and those red splitters as possible. But for now, we are not going to really use those reds here at this time. We simply got those red belts, Logistics 2, so that we could research the automobile. And that's going to continue to research while we are doing all of this. I do need to continue to make more inserters. If I was smart, because I have plenty of inserters here to satisfy my demand on these green science packs. If I was smart, I would probably have a box just waiting somewhere with all the materials necessary. If I'm doing a long playthrough, you better believe that I am doing that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It is happening, and I don't want to hear anybody say that oh, you're over manufacturing, you're overproducing, you're doing too much, you are over engineering your factory. To that I say ha and no. Never. You are never over engineering your factory, and to simply have some production in place where you have all the pipes you'll ever need ready for you in a box ready to go is never ever a waste. As it stands, we do need to pull off some more of this coal here. We left ourselves more space, and that obviously proves to be a good decision because then we're still going to be able to get resources off of these belts and back onto another production line. Okay. And all of a sudden we just went from, it looks like, 18 smelters up to, well, that's 16 right there. Oh, and remember that 2 of those smelters are actually doing steel right now. So we basically just doubled our output for our iron plates. That should help make sure that this belt stays nice and saturated. We have no machines being choked for life. Everything should be working just fine. Because it looks like right here, that's part of the problem. We're not working at full capacity on these inserters because we're not getting enough resources down to the very end of this line to make gear wheels to actually make those work. And that could have had a negative impact on our green science production. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm not sure. But as it stands, it takes quite a lot of resources to keep 14 labs going. I'm using the copy button here. You can copy, and then you can just copy like this. If I paste this down in a clear space, what I just copied, then it will not actually just like build it for me at this point. Later on, there's going to be some fantastic things we can do that are not found in the tutorial. But at this point, it'll give me just a little bit of a ghost, and I can use that as a template to kind of put down what I want. Right now, one thing I haven't mentioned, because it's just not been relevant, is that these ghosts that I'm able to kind of create, and these copy and paste functions, and these blueprints that I can use to make some fantastic, wonderful items, these can be used eventually by tiny robots to build for you. Eventually, you can get robots that will build for you. You can automate the process of building. Right now, and for the tutorial, that's not going to be present. But the game, knowing that it's a game about automation, will allow you to automate everything. And I hope that you get a sense of the scope and the scale that can come when all of a sudden you have thousands of robots that you did not build by hand because you had structures in place to build them, that will then automatically build the things for you, and you are simply the foreman and they are your little workers. You will never find more engineers. You are the engineer. You're the only engineer there is, and there's never going to be any other engineer. But you will get to the point where you are calling the shots, and all these other little things are going to work together for your good, because that's the way that you set them up in your happy little world. It's really nice. It's a really great game. And I hope that doesn't scare you, actually, because I know some people say, well, I like the early game and I don't like the late game as much. They prefer the early game. And I respect and I recognize everybody has different ways that they like to play, and they have different parts that are their favorites. Some people love fluid production. I'm one of those people. I actually love fluids. Other people, they say that they hate it. They say it makes no sense and it's unintuitive. And I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong in your way of thinking and that I'm right. It's just, you're not going to know until you get there. But even though I've mentioned that we're going from coal production to making steam, and then that then makes electricity for us, and eventually we can get into nuclear power, that's not to scare people and to say, oh my gosh, this game is too crazy and it's more than I can handle. The game obviously has lots of little assets that work together and little tasks that you can build and that you can use line upon line to make something wonderful, to make something fantastic. And it's all not one huge project. It's lots of little projects, and each of those little projects are doable, and they culminate in something massive. That is the way that this factory building game works. Lots of little things that make one big thing. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. Currently, our labs are not producing. That's because we have finished automobilism. That was our main goal. As it stands, we're still going to start making some other things. Note that we've gone from researches that require both red and green science, and now we are back into things that only require just the red. It's not going to consume the green science packs. It's only at this time consuming the science packs that are necessary to make that specific science production work. Okay. So we are currently doing the steel axe. Let me just make sure that we go through real quick and talk about what we have produced ourselves. The game gave us automation, which gives us the assembling machines. The game gave us optics, which gave us the lamps, which we haven't used in this scenario. It gave us gun turrets, and it gave us the military one, which allows us to have like the submachine gun and stuff like that. We have researched the wall. We researched the logistics that gave us the splitters and the undergrounds. We researched electronics that then allows us to go into blue and purple inserters, the fast inserters, and the inserters that are able to filter different items. We researched the steel production, which then led into engines and automobilism. We've been producing engines this whole time. We've researched logistics too and gone from yellow belts up to the possibility of making red belts. We've unlocked additional science through the green science pack research that we had to do, and now we do have automobilism researched. And our new objective in the upper left is build a car. What's it take to build a car here? We have the little exclamation point in the upper left here in yellow. Mouse over the car recipe, 20 iron plates, 5 steel plates, and engine units. 1 of 8 is what we currently have. Well, there's 40. That should be plenty. Let me get some raw resources off the belt here. Let me just grab a couple of random knickknacks here and there just to make sure I have plenty of whatever I want, whatever I need. And then let's build a car. Doesn't take very long, just a couple of seconds. Let's bring it out of our inventory and let's place it down on the ground right here. Notice that it has a little fuel indicator. We need to put fuel into the car. Let's see what the engineer has to say on the matter. Well, the objective is fuel the car and take it for a test drive. Use enter to get into the car. If we just hit enter, we are in the car, but we don't have any fuel. If I left click on the car, whether I'm in the car or out of the car, and say I put coal into the fuel spot, it can be wood, it can be coal, solid fuel, rocket fuel, nuclear fuel, whatever. We can do that. And now you heard that the car kind of turned on. And I used the same keys I used to move around here, WASD. And if I just tap W, you get a little spurt of speed, and then the vehicle will slowly shut down, or it will slowly just run out of steam. I can turn left, I can turn right, I can hit the back button, I can hit S, and it will stop the car, and then if I hold S or tap S, it will send me backwards. As it stands, it's a nifty car, and it goes much faster than just normal walking speed. And it has a spot where I can put bullets into it that then I can use to fight my enemies. The engineer says, okay, that's enough joyriding. Why are some of my machines running slowly? I should check that my power production is sufficient. I should pack for the trip. I don't know what I'm walking into here. And then this is requesting that we put in 400 iron plates, 200 copper plates, 20 gun turrets, firearm magazines, steel plates, coal, things like that. But before I get to kind of automating my factory, changing it up so I can get all of these different materials I'm going to need in my car, I'm just going to go and real quick just end the enemy with my fantastic new car, which does have a machine gun mounted on top of it. And actually the machine gun here on this car does do a little bit more damage than your normal machine gun. Why that works, I don't know, but for some reason the machine gun on the car is much better. And we just took out all the enemies with no problems. And that would have actually been fairly easy to do a while ago. But I felt like I needed to demonstrate that at least you could automate your defenses. It's not something I really plan on doing, but as much as possible, I'll have a few defenses just in case I'm not paying good close attention to my poison cloud. And then that will allow me to fix some things. We have run into a problem, and I'm very happy for it. Okay, so what's happened in our absence? Well, looks like we've run out of power. What's wrong with our power? Let's go and troubleshoot that. Looks like no power, no power. It looks like we were using more power than we were able to keep up with these boilers. And then eventually that means that we were not able to produce any more coal. We're not able to produce enough coal to keep everything going. Very, very interesting. So the best thing I can do probably at this point is just have this splitter here. And that way we will more or less split the production between these different electric mining drills. And I'm going to readjust these mining drills and do basically the same thing that we had done before. So that way we can just keep everything going in a good way. And then I have to manually feed these boilers. And hopefully more materials will come down the pipeline. Let's click on our power pole and just see. Yeah, I guess that that 2 electric miners were just not enough to keep up with 3 boilers going at full tilt. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of extra fuel here. Just try to get a little bit of a backlog. Just smooth this out a tiny bit. At this point, we're not going to have any problems, but always very interesting to see it when it happens. Okay. So our factory is back up to working at full functionality. We have plenty of power, no problems. I will continue to research things. Automation 2, for example. And then note, what are the things that we need here? We need 50 steel plates. Got it. We need 400 iron plates in our car. Got it. Then we're going to need gun turrets. We have 4 out of 20. We're going to need copper plates. We're going to need about 60 more copper plates. We're going to need ammo. We're going to need ammunition. We need about 75 bits of ammunition. We need about, need about 25 bits more of coal. So the copper is no problem. Let's do something to automate the production of gun turrets and ammunition. As I step on this, 1, 2, 3. This should be more than sufficient. This will eventually get us to our goals with our ammo. And then for the production of the gun turrets, it's really going to be more of a matter of, well, we have the copper plates here. Let's have another iron gear wheel being produced here. That's going to go here. Let's just have our new assembling machine for that there, here, here. And then I'm just going to do something really silly and simple. I'm just going to pull material directly off of this belt with another arm. A splitter would work just fine. This will work just fine as well. And then I'm also going to just help production along because it takes, what, 20 iron plates? This is a good time to use a blue inserter instead of a yellow inserter. It'll just make sure that more material gets off the belt quicker. And so while that's happening, I am also going to get just a little bit more copper plates because that's going to be important for me to help make these gun turrets faster. And then that's going to continue and meet my goal for copper plates. So we're good on iron, good on copper. Firearm magazines are being made. Steel plates are good. Let me pull some additional coal off of this line here. And that meets that requirement. And then firearm magazine. We're getting there. We are getting there very quickly. But as you can see, because we already have the infrastructure, it's just not a problem. Not a problem at all. To research and to make what we need, this is going to go fairly quickly, I do believe. And one thing I can do is I can go to assembling machine 2. We talked about how the transport belts and the underground belts, how they are faster. We now have assembling machine 2s. Assembling machine 2 is just like the assembling machine 1, this assembling machine we've been using a lot, except it's got a little bit of a blue tinge to it, and it goes faster. If I put one of these assembling machines right next to the other one, and I mouse over, the assembling machine 1 has a crafting speed of 0.5, pollution is 4 parts per minute. This assembling machine 2 has a crafting speed of 0.75, so it goes basically 50% faster than the other assembling machine does, and it puts out a little bit less pollution. Okay, great. The electricity consumption goes up, the minimum consumption goes up. It's more expensive in general to run and operate this machine, but it does go faster. So in this case, where we're saying, oh, this is kind of our bottleneck right now, this is the reason why we're not able to get out of production quicker, let's just go faster. Let's just have assembling machine 1 replaced with an assembling machine 2, and I can swap these out in and out, no problem. I can go from blue to gray, and it doesn't actually like restart production or anything like that. It's not a problem. Not a problem. We're going to continue to let that go. We're going to continue to research things because why not? I think that this is actually going to be enough ammunition here. It is. We met our ammunition requirements. We have 13 additional gun turrets in there. We're going to need 2 more. I'll craft 1 more, but I think that the other 2 are going to come from this assembling machine 2. There's 2. And with that, we've officially met our requirements. We have packed our car with 400 iron plates, with the copper plates, with the gear wheels, with the gun turrets, so on and so forth. And in the process, we built a big machine that's thriving. And you can see we had the we had our labs going right there at the bottom. Folks, that's where we're going to stop today. I will do the 5th tutorial in another video. I think that 1 hour and 45 minutes is plenty.